everybody, to the season finale of season 2 of the Industry Leaders podcast. Today, we speak to none other than our very own Daine Mcdonald. Daine, welcome to the other side of the
I
mic.
know.
How does
Far
it
out. This
feel?
feels weird. It's like I'm being cross-examined.
You are in the hot seat.
I'm in the hot seat. It is hot
yeah.
here, so it's suitable and all that.
Lucky you, our season's here. I'm from Chicago for anybody who doesn't know, and we're entering the fall and winter season, and I'll be admiring everybody halfway across the world in the sun in their swimsuits.
Yeah,
I'm living
I
through
know.
you guys.
I know.
Um,
I'll send
we're
you
gonna.
some beach shots later.
I mean, look at your view outside of your window.
Yeah,
Let's all take a moment to admire that.
I
But
know.
just
I
like
know.
anybody that we've had on, we're gonna have to kick off this podcast with giving
Indeed.
us a little bit more information about like your journey in the fitness industry. Give us more about who Daine Mcdonald is. I know people should be familiar with you. You were a host,
Yep.
but let's give the listeners who maybe knew a little bit more insight about you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, far out. Like me as a person, me in the fitness industry are kind of, in some respects, one and the same. Because the last almost 20 years now, I've been in the fitness industry. It's been my only real career. I mean, I've had businesses on the side and things like that outside the fitness industry, especially when I first started out. But it's made up such a massive part of my life and who I am. And I think it goes back to my upbringing. I was really lucky and fortunate that I was brought up in a family of athletes. Everyone trained. My grandfather was an Olympian. He went to the Olympics, Commonwealth Games gold medalist, and so there's a lot of weightlifting. My uncle and dad did bodybuilding. I did martial arts. My dad did martial arts. So it was always, when kids back then were having like Wheaties for breakfast, for us it was steak and eggs, right? So we were
It was
always
your
kind
life.
of, yeah, and it was just kind of, I thought that was normal. And then,
Yeah.
obviously when I went into school and stuff like that and started competing in sports and doing well, I didn't realize, I realized that it wasn't. And I guess
Yeah.
it kind of, I went through school kind of, especially my later years, like not really focusing on study. I was just kind of,
Yeah.
a lot of the time I would wag school to go and play basketball because I was so
Look at
obsessed
you.
with basketball. Especially for a kid growing up in the in the mid-90s in high school. Michael Jordan and the Bulls and all that type of stuff. So it was just like playing basketball all the time,
Represent.
exactly representing Chicago. And so by the time I got to the end of high school, like I hadn't really applied myself with my study, and so I kind of finished high school thinking like, I'd gotten pretty crap marks, and I was a bit lost, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which is probably confusing, or maybe not confusing, but like, a lot different than how people perceive me today and how I have been, my entire adult life. But at that point in my life as an 18-year-old, um, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I was kind of sitting around there thinking like, how can I get some direction? What do I want to do in my life? And it's actually my mom was like, maybe you should give the army a shot.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I was like, well, yeah, like, I mean, look, it makes sense. Like I can keep training because I was obviously still into my training. I could train, I can learn some new things and stuff like that. So, I was like, okay, well, I'll commit to it, for a 6-month period as a reservist, and you go and do all the full-time, recruit training. Like back then, whether you went in the reserves or went in full-time, you all went in together.
Gotcha.
And I remember kind of literally within 2 days of being in there on the phone to my parents, crying. And I was like, fuck, like, pardon my French.
Oh,
Can I swear on this? Um,
yes, you may.
we can edit out. And I was like, to my parents, I was like, I really kind of wasted the last few years of my life, like
Yeah.
not applying myself, not taking action, like if you guys have heard me talk before and follow me on my own social on Instagram at Daine Mcdonald, subscribe and like. You'll find that I take massive action in everything that I do, but at that point in my life
Yeah.
I didn't, and that was the penny drop. Me as an 18-year-old in tears on the phone to my parents, hundreds of kilometers away from home and away from civilization in boot camp, right?
It was like a reality.
Yeah, and it was a big reality check. And so for me, then I decided then and there that I was going to finish my training there, apply myself, do the best that I could. Then as soon as I got out, I would go and start studying to become a PT.
How awesome.
because obviously, and this is back in 2001, right? So 20 years ago. And, back then, personal training, it was not an industry. Like it was kind of stuff that people did in spandex. It was kind of like,
With
you
the
know,
leg warmers.
with the leg warmers, and it was, out in parks and boxercise and boot camps. And, so when I came back, and obviously, look, I was, super fit and into my training already. So it was a natural kind of, transition into the fitness industry for me. So, like I remember as soon as I started studying and kind of people knew that I was studying, people would ask me for training advice anyway, because I looked the part and was into my working out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just kind of took off from there. And, within a few years, I was kind of by about the age of 2021, like I was still studying. So I studied for literally 5 straight years, actually.
So
Um,
tell us a little bit about the education you invested in for being a PT. What did that look like for
yeah,
you?
so because I didn't get the marks at high school to get into like the exercise science degree that I wanted to, I had to go the roundabout way. So I went to like a college first, did spent 2 years there doing two different diplomas, and then used that to get into university. And then I did a 3-year degree in human movement and sports science.
And in
And
Australia, do you guys have you have to go through schooling for that? It's not like getting certification like how it is nowadays, like you can get, certified without necessarily going to college.
as a
Was it
personal
different?
trainer,
Yeah. Was
um,
that different back then?
yeah, no, you could like our version of like say NASM and or say the ISSA for North America that have been around for decades is two organisations called the Australian Institute of Fitness and the Australian Institute of Personal Trainers, who ironically now today are competitors.
Gotcha.
Well, for us as Clean Health. So, but back then, they were kind of fairly still like AIPT was only founded in 1999 and the AIF was founded in 1979. So they were fairly new, well, not the AIF. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, they were kind of certifications, and I was like, I didn't want that. I wanted to learn it more formally, and so like I
Gotcha.
literally studied my initial personal training certification was 2 years full time, and it was done as a diploma. It ended up being a diploma in fitness and a diploma in strength and conditioning. Um,
Awesome.
which is ironic, like trivia note, like one of my teachers from my diploma back then works for me now still today,
Who is that?
right? So
I don't know
she's
that.
Rosemary Marchese. She's one of our board members on our academic advisory board.
Oh,
She's been
awesome.
in the industry now for 35 years, and she heads up a lot of our IP and I guess content auditing and creation. So ironic, like another kind of tip, and this goes for any industry, but like you never know when you're going to cross paths with someone again. So always, I think I put up a post yesterday. Hang around with people that don't talk, you know, crap. Hang out with people who do crap. So,
Yeah.
i.e., who
I
take
like that.
action.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of that's what happened there, and then it literally just kind of took off from there. And the first few years, I was kind of doing stuff outside, and I wasn't working in a commercial gym because I was studying full time. I was doing my clients outside, and I was also actually back then doing online. This is back in
Really?
2003, 2004. Yeah, but it was like not online like today because you didn't have the technology. So back then it was like emails. You'd email them the program, do a phone call. Every
Yeah.
every kind of 4 weeks, stuff like that, and by the time I got to about 2006 and I'd finished all of my courses, and I was like, do I go and do a master's degree? Because, everyone in my family had kind of got master's degrees and doctorates in different, in law or in, physical therapy or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm kind of, after 5 years of studying full time, I was like, I've had enough for now
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, where can I now go and kind of monetize this knowledge? Really, and where can I make the biggest impact? And so I moved closer to the city,
Mm-hmm.
and I started at working out of a commercial gym at Fitness First, which is a massive eye opener for me. Like because I hadn't been working in a gym environment, and all of a sudden kind of, I'm working with 45 other trainers.
Yeah, you're entering a market of competition, right? You have to
Yeah.
outshine a lot of other people and like make sure you stand out amongst the
Well,
crowd.
we really have to like, yeah, like stand out, define yourself, niche down. And I remember the first, my first day, or my first floor shift, it started at 5:30 a.m. But my first floor shift was at 5:30 a.m. and by 6:15 a.m. I'd signed up my first client.
Awesome. Look at
And
you.
yeah, and it kind of just took off from there. And within kind of 6 months of working there, I had other trainers coming
Yeah.
to me to train them. It was about 20, 24, 25 at the time, 24. And I had other trainers coming to me then, and then I started. I remember I got my foot in the door with some athletes from the New South Wales Institute of Sport, and so I
Cool.
started applying all of that strength and conditioning knowledge that I learned. And
That's
like I'd been reading and following people like Charles Poliquin and Christian Thibodeau and things like that for many years, and it kind of just took off from there. And by the time I got into 2008, I was one of the most well-known trainers in Sydney. I was earning 150,000 a year.
And for a PT, especially back then, even in Australian dollars, just thinking about it in comparison here, that's a lot. That's a lot for a PT at the
yeah.
time.
Well, when you put that in with inflation
Yeah.
would be over 200,000 now. And so I
Yeah.
was earning more at 25, 26 than, friends of mine that had gone and done law degrees and accounting degrees and things like that. All the stuff that you're told through the formal academic system that you need to do to
Yeah.
be successful, right?
Or financially stable and secure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for me, it's like, okay, cool. Like I'm getting these results. I'm, earning good money, but it's still very reliant on me. And that's kind of when I started to come up with the concept of clean health. And it was really just based off the approach that I took to my training and working with
Mm.
clients. And at the time, my girlfriend who I was with, and it was, really on addressing a client's lifestyle first, their
Hmm.
nutrition second. And then once you had done those two things, you would actually start training the client, because without the lifestyle and nutrition, the training is semi pointless.
It's kind of
And
it's just 1% of what you can
yeah,
do. It's that 1 hour in
if,
the
if
day
if
when you
if they're
have.
not sleeping, if they're
Yep.
stressed, if they're not eating, you know,
Yeah.
smashing them in the gym potentially could compound matters.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of where clean health was born. And the first few years, and I did that, by the way, because my idea was to create. And this is, for a lot of trainers out there, like today, I'd probably do things differently because, again, back then, no social media.
Right.
Like you had
Yeah.
things like MySpace and Twitter, like, fuck, I sound old saying that, and Twitter. And then, but you had
Yeah.
Facebook, which was only 1 or 2 years into its infancy, so that it wasn't really used for that.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, how can I establish something that long term, when people look at it, it's almost like they look at Nike. So like when you look at
Yeah.
Nike, people associate Nike as like a quality brand. People know the tick. It's
Yep.
very, you can distinguish it, and people associate it with quality. So if you've got Roger Federer, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, all of these different athletes, wear the brand, they're
Yeah.
ambassadors for the brand. Um, but at the end of the day, they just make up part of the brand. So for me, it was like I wanted to create something that would be the fitness industry's version of Nike.
Awesome. Yeah. And I
You
feel like
know,
that's truly what clean health has become, being part of like clean health as like a part of the face of the company. I really do think that, it's more than just an institute for education for fitness. It's really, like you said, like a legendary brand for the fitness industry. And, it's changing the game for a lot of trainers. And I am going to vouch for that to the end. It's the source of most of my education. I've taken all of the courses, but
yeah.
that's my story. But I'm here to vouch.
Oh,
I came in as a student and then became a master coach, and I'm over here like, what the?
yeah.
You can do it too, guys. You can do it too.
And that's true. I mean, you're proof positive of that. And like back then, think about it. Like at 24 years old, in 2008, or 2000, or 25 years old, or whatever it was, um, I wasn't starting at thinking that in 2021, 13 years later, I'd be sitting here with someone that's wearing the Nike tick for us, so to speak, based out
Yeah.
of Chicago, working as part of the family. And so for that, I'm
So
super grateful for. Side note,
yeah.
super grateful for you, but just super
Super grateful
grateful
for
for,
you.
yeah, super grateful for just being able to, like, create a platform. Like in life and business, I've always been good at creating something out of nothing,
I
right?
love that.
So,
I,
even,
it's
yeah, even with kind of my new business that I'm launching now, Daine Mcdonald, on the Daine Mcdonald brand, which is all about, I guess, helping people become happy, healthy, and successful in life. I'm good at starting things, and so that's how Clean Health started, and it just obviously took off from there. And using the Nike analogy, we've now had generations of industry leaders around the world, trainers, come up through the ranks. As initially, all of the first trainers that I hired actually were clients of mine. So there were other
yeah.
trainers that I was training, and I guess I was able to get that buy-in with them. And I think one tip for anyone, and this is not just for personal trainers, but this is for any industry. If you want to build a brand that is not only nationally renowned but internationally renowned, you need to become the who's who of your craft, i.e., you need to become a subject matter expert. So,
Yeah.
and that doesn't just happen one day you wake up and you're like, oh, wow, I know all this stuff,
No, it
right? It,
doesn't.
it
Yeah.
doesn't happen
It's
like,
a long journey.
outside of the formal education I did, between 2006 to 2011, I spent over $250,000, which would be about $350,000 in today's due to
Yeah.
inflation, in a 5-year period. It's like
Yeah.
50,000 a year I was putting into my education in terms of courses, flights. Like, I used to be so crazy with my education. Like, there were times when literally it's a Monday. I found out. I remember one time it was a Monday. I found out there was a um, a workshop in Rhode Island with one of the world's leading physique athlete coaches that was on
Mm-hmm.
the Saturday and Sunday of that weekend. So Monday,
Mm-hmm.
I bought the ticket, I bought the flights, I jumped on the plane on the Friday. I arrived Saturday morning Boston time, grabbed a car, jumped in the car, drove at 6 a.m. from
Wow.
Boston to Rhode Island for a course that started at 9 o'clock, stayed there Saturday, stayed there Sunday. And then on Sunday, when it finished at 6, I got in the car, drove back to Boston, got on the plane, and came back home.
That is wild. And that is what I'm saying is dedication. And I think here's one of the
Mm.
things. I think a lot of times people they have a misconception that these things happen overnight. And they usually see the end product of success.
Yeah.
And they don't really, notice you when you are at the beginning baby infancy stages. And it starts picking up and then at the end once you see, you had that vision for yourself and you put in the time, the work, the effort, even when people maybe didn't believe in you. You had the people that did believe in
Oh,
you.
yeah.
People need to
He,
people you
heaps,
need to
yeah, heaps
understand
of
it takes
naysayers.
time. Yeah.
And it does. Like, so I think like that whole, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Like, if you want to build that brand, which can obviously, like, ultimately I tell people that, business is a tool to help you fulfill a passion, to help solve a problem in a particular demographic. So you might be a lawyer who loves debating, so you help people, like,
Formulate
grow
their
their,
argument better.
protect
Yeah,
their,
or
protect their business, or in
yeah.
litigation or whatever. Or you're an accountant who loves numbers, so you help people solve complex financial problems so that they can increase their wealth, whatever that might be. But the prerequisite to that is knowledge.
Yeah.
And
And
then
I
actually,
think
I was going to say
go ahead.
this, the second one that ties in with that, will probably end up going off questions here, Maria. I guarantee it.
Not a problem. Hey, we run the show, so we could take it any direction you want.
Exactly. But the second one, after not after the knowledge, is the experience, right? So
Yeah.
you hit the head on the nail before in regards to time. Like, and I use that period of 2006 to 2011 because that really was the period where I applied my knowledge with experience whilst
Yeah.
I grew my knowledge. So I was initially in my career, I was growing lots of knowledge and had a little bit of experience. But when I started
I'm
taking
I'm
yeah,
right there in that phase.
yeah, but when I started taking myself out of my comfort zone, traveling to courses, to workshops, networking, right?
Yep.
Networking. Um, that's really when I started to grow as a human. Like, jumping on a plane and flying overseas by myself for a 2-day workshop, you don't realize at the time, but like that type of stuff helps you grow as a person.
Yeah,
You
100%.
know,
100%.
it helps you grow as a person. So I think, for any fitness professional or anyone in business, just remember that you're not always going to, become a millionaire success story in 1, 2, 3, or even 5 years. Sometimes it might take some time, but as long as you apply yourself every day, establish good habits, and keep up at it, you're going to put yourself at a increased likelihood for success.
And I think the biggest thing also is like making sure you're believing in yourself and your purpose and why you're doing what you're doing. You know,
Hmm.
sometimes it could feel lonely. Maybe you feel like, it's impossible or there's too much competition or whatever excuse goes through your mind when you're trying to start something. I think you need to really make sure that you're committed to your purpose, your passion. And when there's a will, there really is a way. I feel like no matter how many doors may close in your face, if
Mm.
as long as you have that grit to keep on trying, there will be opportunities for you to like put your foot in the door and really find ways to grow and expose a version of yourself that is needed for that growth that is happening. I see that
Yeah,
all the time, even with myself becoming a PT. Of course, it's traditional for my family's like got to go to school to get your bachelor's and master's and this and this, and I did. I went to college, and while in college, I pursued my career in as a PT, and I graduated, and I'm using that to help me grow my business because I believe in what I want to do, and I think
yeah,
that if you believe in it hard enough, even when it's tough, even when it's like maybe I couldn't sustain my lifestyle with a PT when I first started. I was 18 in the gym, like
yeah.
while in school full time. But it's about committing to that passion, and you start attracting the things that you need in order to be successful. Now,
Oh,
we talked
definitely.
about mentors, like, networking. How did you manage, like, who are your biggest mentors towards the beginning of your career? And how do you, like, open up those doors to connect with these mentors? I think that's really important with any career.
Look, I think it comes like might sound a bit woo-saw, but you spoke about it before about kind of attracting things. Like, I always look at this like with goal setting in life, right? You
Mhm.
know, you have a dream that's over here,
Yeah.
and then here's the thought that starts that dream. Now the problem is, like, a lot of the time people don't execute on that thought and go
Yeah.
towards their dream. So it becomes a dream and a thought, but they don't create any new habits on a day-to-day basis
Yeah.
to move towards that goal. But the first thing is you need to have that thought. You need to have that intent. So for me, like, I've always had the intention to, maybe it was being told I was not good enough growing up and having a chip on my shoulder initially, whatever it might be. I've
Whatever it
always
is.
taken a bit of pride in being very good at what I do, right? So if I do something in life, I want to do it really well. And so that has kind of, I guess, transitioned across to my mentors and anyone that I've kind of learned from over the years. I mean, initially in the fitness industry, my biggest mentor was Charles Poliquin. I mean, I tell people today, um, you know,
Everybody has mentioned him this season, and I find it fascinating. And I, started learning a lot more from him as well, and reading up on who he was because I wasn't super familiar at the beginning of the season. I kept hearing that name being brought up, and I was like, "Wait a second, who is this guy?" And I was like, "It is so impressive to me how impactful this man was to so many of our industry leaders." And if anybody's been listening, almost every single episode, his name has popped up as somebody that they've looked up to or learned from, which is fascinating.
well, Charles used to have a saying, "Success leaves clues," right? So
Yes.
that statement by itself should kind of point a picture of the type of person that he was. Like, Charles, unfortunately, gets even today, he sometimes still gets a bad rap in the industry. I think by the end of his career, he was kind of, he'd get, attacked a lot through social and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, some of his philosophies and stuff like that around nutrition and things of that nature have been debunked, in the science, in recent years, which is fine. Like,
Yeah,
all right, everyone
science
makes
keeps
mistakes.
evolving.
Exactly. The one thing I'll say for Charles is when it came to his training methods and the way that he's systemized his approach to his clients, but then also conversely to his business. That's what had the biggest impact on me because, back then again, 2006, when I first met him, personal training was like the Wild West. It was like a pay as you go. There was no like, it was very ad hoc. It was like cash in hand. There was nothing
No
professional
system.
about it, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And so he was the first guy that really kind of, taught me that concept of, value, right? And so when you're selling yourself in any industry, whether it's a personal trainer or you're selling your services as a gardener, like, you are providing a solution to someone's problem. Therefore, you
Yeah.
should charge based off the solution, not off the time,
Yes, I agree with that. I really do. And I
you
feel like
know?
it's kind of hard sometimes as a PT, even at the beginning of specifically talking as a PT. This goes for any
Mm,
business, but a lot of times, I found even myself, and I'll speak for myself for this one at the beginning of my career was, not, I was undercharging. And when I walked into the gym floor and the owner of the private gym that I work at pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you can't be doing that. You are providing way more than some of the trainers at this gym. No matter how young and intimidated you may feel, you need to
yeah.
charge the what you're providing." And I think that was one thing that, for anybody out there, whatever your service is, charge for the quality of work that you're giving. And don't be afraid of that. Do not be afraid of that. Commit to it. Like, I think that was the biggest thing. Like, even as a woman, as a young one in the industry, I feel kind of like intimidated at first. And then once I
Mm,
started like sticking to it and feeling confident in the value that I was providing for my services, I no longer have anxiety or like stress out about, putting a price to what I'm providing, because I'm putting so much heart and passion into it that I know that, it's priceless. But, obviously I'm trying to build a business and career out of this and valuing it. What I think I know that it's worth is you have to put your foot down for that. And this is for anybody listening for any career. But, within my own experience, I saw that shift and transition, like you're saying about charging for the value, not the time.
yeah. And I kind of like from him, like that's where I really started to change my mindset to sales. So, you know,
Yeah.
I think one thing I've learned recently actually from Grant Cardone, who's another mentor, one that I've recently worked with and currently working with and being mentored by, is that selling is not just the art of sitting down and selling someone a service or product. Like right now, I'm selling the audience. And you're probably asking, well, how are you? Pretty
Yeah.
much, I am, about to or have been giving you guys advice from a place of conviction and experience and expertise that is selling the knowledge to you to actually take it on board and apply it yourselves. Right.
Yeah.
So, another example could be you have a child and they don't want to brush their teeth. Right. No, I don't want to brush my teeth. No, I don't want to do it. Okay. How you approach and resolve that and get them to brush their teeth, that is actually selling an idea to them. So selling is not just physical. It's selling can also be selling an idea, selling a concept,
Yeah.
selling influence, right?
Yes.
So as a personal trainer, as a coach, you are an influencer,
Yeah.
right? So you need to be good at selling. If
Yeah.
you cannot sell yourself as a personal trainer, you're either A, in the wrong industry, which probably isn't the case because
Yeah.
most people get into the fitness industry because they're passionate about their own health and fitness and wanting to help other people, I guess, see the
Yeah.
light of what they've seen. Look at
Yeah.
they want to see the physical benefits, the mental health benefits, and everything else in between that. So that's not generally it. The second thing is you just need to learn how to sell. you
Yeah.
know, and and a lot of people are like, oh, Daine, that's easy for you. You're a big guy, outgoing, blah blah blah. Yes, that can be true to a certain extent.
Yeah.
However, the way that I potentially will sell something can be maybe a bit too intimidating for some people, right? So it it depends on your niche. Like the type of people that I attract based off my personality and that I attracted as a coach and that I attract today, with my business coaching, are
Yeah.
people that are probably more aligned with me,
Yeah.
right? So they're wanting to get close to this energy and be part of that, whereas other people might not, and that's fine. So I've always said with
Yeah.
sales, like I look at it as five key steps that trainers need to be aware of, or anyone needs to be aware of when it comes to selling themselves. the first step to that is basically the pre-sale. Now, the
Yes.
pre-sale is basically when your potential client is looking at you from afar and has not even spoken to you, right?
Yeah.
Or they're following you on social media. They might not have even liked your post, but they're
Yeah.
sitting there, they're observing you,
You know
right?
what? It's judging a book by its cover. Unfortunately, people do that. People will judge based off of that first look, whether it's
Yeah.
of your social media page, the first time they meet you. It's that first sense of judgment of them trying to analyze who you are, what you do, and everything like that.
Mm.
That's just how it is. And you
And,
have to
and
really nail it on the head.
yeah, and I mean, in many respects, there is actually a step zero before that. And step zero is actually being an expert at what you providing, being professional, um, radiating positivity, radiating, a strong energy of, empowering and helping people. That's almost like water, right? But, the
Yeah.
pre-sale is pretty much literally everything before you even speak to them,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot of not just trainers but people in general, don't realize that how they act on a day-to-day basis can either turn on or turn off leads,
Yeah. I agree with
right?
that.
So, I give you an example. Like recently, for anyone following my social and seeing the new business that I'm starting up, I've been putting out a lot of content, right?
Yes, it's been so great to see your name pop up on my feed more often now.
Like,
It's epic.
I'm putting out like 10, 15, sometimes 20 videos a day.
I
Not
love it.
OCD or anything, but one thing I've noticed is since putting out the content, the amount of messages I'm getting about questions and actually if I can help
Yeah.
people, right? So again, like that, pre-sale or that attraction stage, being an expert at what you know and actually putting that stuff out there for free to attract people is key to it. Obviously, the second step after that is when you actually get them in the door into some sort of consultation, right?
Yeah.
So, like when people, texting me on Instagram or on email, um, if they're inquiring about my service, the first thing I'm almost going into is, I mean, outside of wanting to either get them on the phone or on Zoom, is conducting a needs analysis. And so, so if you've got step one, which is the pre-sale, and then step two, the needs analysis, the needs analysis is pretty much, as the title kind of indicates, it's you need to understand the needs, the problem, the why behind why that client is there.
Yep.
And I can tell
Agreed.
you, there's generally there's the conscious reason. So obviously, your conscious mind is basically that part of your mind that is active right now, listening to what I'm saying. You've then got your pre-conscious mind, which is like maybe thinking about that meeting that you've got in an hour's time. It's there, but it's not at the front of your mind. So there's your
Yeah.
pre-conscious mind. And then the third part to that is your subconscious mind. Now
Yeah.
that's the part that pretty much is like the autonomous driver that is driving you towards your destination without you even realizing why you're doing it. And
Yeah.
and that's the why that most clients don't understand or are not aware of when they come into you. Some of them might be,
Yeah.
and so that needs analysis. You've got to make sure that you ask questions that evoke some sort of emotional response, that
Yeah.
trigger some sort of pain point. You know, okay, so you're over. For example, Maria, um, you're 10 kilos overweight. Clearly, you're not, but you're 10 kilos overweight. So 25 pounds for people in North America. How long has that been an issue for you? Now you might say, okay, it's been an issue for 3 years. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. What stopped you from taking action on that sooner? Or my dog, my dog was ill. My husband didn't want me to do it. Blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah. All right, so Maria, let's just say, let's close your eyes. Now let's look three years into the future. If you were to continue down this path and feel the same way that you feel right now, how would your life actually be 3 years from now if you were to continue down this path?
And
Now, for
nobody
most,
expects you to ask things like this. They're going to be like, Whoa. There, usually in those types of thought-provoking questions, you don't usually hear. Not often. Some client, and this is within the training industry, you're asking like a fitness type of scenario at the
Mm.
gym, first session free, just let's do some workouts. You like it? Great, let's sign up. But I think that was the one thing that I learned is taking that time for that consultation, that meeting the person and really getting to like connect with them. It's that emotion thing. I've noticed that I've done that without even knowing that I'm doing that when you're bringing this up as an example, bringing
Yeah,
those questions, scenarios, and thoughts has them connected and drawn to you instantly because they're like, I've never thought about it like that. I
yeah.
really have.
And if you conduct a needs analysis efficiently and properly, when it comes to step three, which is providing the solution,
Yeah.
it's almost quite easy to do. And I think the problem is though when people present kind of their people will do the needs analysis and then they'll go straight into the price. It's
Yeah.
like, no, you need to provide the solution. So what I mean by that is you actually need to paint out the journey that the client is
Yes.
going to go through over the period of time they need, not want, need to resolve the problem that they had or they have coming in to see you. So, for example,
Yeah.
if we use the other world version of you that's 23, 24 pounds, 10 kilos overweight, right? Now, that type of weight loss is not going to happen in 6 weeks. So, if
No.
my solution to you, Maria, was to provide you with a 6 week program where you train 5 times a week, I mean, I'm going to have to deprive your calories. I'm going to have to literally, like, I don't know, feed you air for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It should be completely
Nobody wants to do
unhealthy.
that.
Exactly. And so, based off what you pick up from the needs analysis, I would in this example, I'm going to provide you with a 12-week program as a bare minimum where you train 4 times a week because you're probably lacking motivation because you haven't taken action over the last 3 4 years. And I'm going to paint out every step of that process from week 1 through to week 12, what that's going to look like for you to help you achieve that goal or that outcome. you know and then when I've gone through that journey, I'm going to ask you, Maria, like, how would that feel for you?
Yeah.
Is that the type of program that you were after? So I'm getting them to reaffirm that A, they're going to feel amazing doing this, and B, this is exactly what they need. So they're in essence, they're selling themselves
That they're
based
capable
on the
of doing
journey.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then from there you go into step four, which is basically, I like to call it like, providing the options. And so the options
Yes.
really for me is, I only present two, generally speaking, and you're always presenting the highest value option. So i.e. the one that they actually need,
Yeah.
right? And then obviously from there it's closing the deal, and potentially after that stage six, overcoming objections. But you can go very deep into the sales process, like we have 10, 12, 13, 14 steps. But I find for fitness professionals, having a 5 step process like that works. I've trained up this process with my staff over the years to sell personal training services, to sell education services. And, like, I mean, I myself, I've done over 10,000 sales consults, and, we've done over, circa $60 million in sales over the last 7 8 years using these methods, to
Yeah.
sell our services as a business. So they work.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to really apply yourself, especially if this is the first time you're doing something or anything at all, just try and do it. You might not be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. I hate that. You're going to learn from your mistakes. Failing is
Yep.
growing. So if you try and you fail the first time, it's not that the process sucked. Maybe there was just something else you needed to do to improve, and just try again the next time you talk to somebody or the next time you try to do something. I think too many times people fear failure. I think one of the greatest things, and I'm really grateful that I learned this early on, I love failing. Failing teaches me so much, not only about myself, but like there's just so much to learn out there, that failing is that door to being like, okay, I know this something I did wasn't good enough. Let me learn how to be better so that I don't need to make
Yeah.
that mistake again. Even if you
Oh,
step
look,
in another mistake, that's
you know,
fine.
my saying on that is failing to fail is failing, right? So if you
Yes.
fail to take yourself outside of your comfort zone, because that's where growth occurs. The growth doesn't
Yeah.
occur when you're sitting by the pool having a pina colada every day,
Yeah, or
right?
just thinking about doing something and not actually trying to do it, no matter how scary it is.
Growth occurs when you take, massive action in a aspect of your life. So whether that is
Yeah.
becoming a better parent, a better partner, better in your career, better in business. Some of the biggest learning curves that I've had have come from a place of pain, right? And that was
Yeah.
pain that I felt at that point in time, whether it was financial loss, emotional loss,
Yeah.
loss of my physical health as well. I went through a period where, I kind of went from being the founder and head coach to the founder and CEO, and I kind of, took that on literally just threw myself into my business, got quite
Yeah.
unhealthy, quite physically and mentally unwell,
Yeah.
from that. But I'm grateful that it happened, because had it not occurred, I wouldn't have been able to learn from it.
Yeah. And we need to make sure that we, take at their lowest lows, that means the high is coming. You're going to learn something. And no matter how shitty the time may feel, you are growing from that. And there's always been times when you feel like the challenges you're facing are near impossible. There's no solution to them. Well,
Hmm.
those challenges you faced 5 years ago, 10 years ago, look at you now. Though something happened with those challenges, they're no longer challenges, or you overcame them, whatever it may be. You just got to make sure that you keep taking those steps forward. No matter
Yep.
how slow, how fast, you just keep stepping forward. And I think one thing that you kind of touched base on earlier about it, this, you said this also on your stories for anybody who's been watching, getting your hands dirty. So you were
Yep.
very hands-on at the early ages of Clean Health, and that's honestly reflective in not only your management skills, your business skills, your communication skills. What is like a typical week look like of you getting your hands dirty in the business, and even now getting into the new business that you are starting up? Give us a little bit more
Yep.
insight of what that looks like.
Yeah. I mean, look, for Clean Health as an organization, I've done every single job in it, right? So
Yeah.
I've done admin, I've done customer service, I've done sales, I've done marketing, I've done graphics, I've done videos, I've done social, I've done presenting, I've done writing the courses, I've done PT, I've done developing the PT. I mean, I've done cleaning the toilets. Like I've
Janitor.
done
There you go.
janitor. Like I've done every single job, and I mean I think that's part of being an entrepreneur too. Is that the very best ones are generally the ones that have experienced all elements of what it takes to grow their business. Obviously now with Clean Health, I've been very fortunate in that I've built up a team. I don't need to necessarily do a lot of those tasks, which are probably not aren't the best use of my skill set. So I've
Yeah.
been able to get myself to a position where I can take on high value tasks instead of low value tasks.
Yeah.
So it's been a process, but I think I've enjoyed it. And even though I'm not doing that now with Clean Health as the executive chairman, like recently, much to her dismay, promoted my wife into the CEO role, Lauren. Um, you know,
Big congratulations, everybody who doesn't know that was an announcement. I don't know if it was made publicly yet,
not
but yeah,
not
Lauren is
not
our new
yet, but
CEO.
I just figured I'd drop it. Um, and
Bomb
like,
dropped.
yeah. Well, look, she came into the business 6 years ago,
Yeah.
and has worked in pretty much every role as well. So outside of myself in the history, I've had hundreds of people work for me over the last 13 years, in different roles. She's probably
Yeah.
outside of myself had the most diversity, and she's at a point in her life now where I mean, yes, we've got 6 kids, which is a lot. But our youngest is 14 months, and she's got a bit more time. We've got a full time housekeeper that
Yeah.
also helps as well. And so she loves she loves it. She loves the brand, she loves the company, she's good at what she does, and
Yeah.
that's really kind of allowed me to step away and launch my new Daine Mcdonald brand.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed applying the same kind of stuff that I was doing in the early days of Clean Health,
Into
with
this.
into this. Yeah, like so, like some of the sales calls that I've had in the last week, that have come in, like I've done them. I've done half of them myself. And it's been
Yeah.
great, like the customers that have ended up signing up, they weren't expecting to speak to me. So it's been great from that perspective, just to kind of get my hands dirty. And I think sometimes too, like, I was guilty of this, and something that Grant Cardone kind of like really reiterated and reminded me of, just through watching what he does kind of in his 60s now. Like, when you work towards a goal and you hit it, and you get to a point where, like, I've been very fortunate. I, have a lovely
Yeah.
home. I've been able to accumulate, a certain amount of kind of financial, stability and wealth and all that type of stuff that goes in between. Um, but it could be easy at times to become complacent. And I
Yes. Yeah.
realized in the last few months, like doing some really like honest self-reflection, that I'd probably lost a little bit of that fire that got me
Yeah.
to where I've been able to
You
get
were.
to.
Yeah.
And so that was also one of the drivers behind kind of moving aside, from the CEO role in Clean Health. Like, it's obviously, still my ship, and I'm still the owner, and all that type of stuff. But it was that thing where I realized I just wasn't, I'd been doing it for too long,
Yeah.
and I'd probably lost a little bit of the motivation. And plus, you
Yeah.
also change. Like,
Yeah.
as we
You've
get
grown.
up,
You've
yeah,
grown into a new chapter of
exactly, like,
your career,
he-
your life, your passions.
health and fitness for me has always been one of my key core pillars in life, and it's one of the core key pillars in my new business. But it's also just one of them. I've got my
Yeah.
family, I've got the financial aspect of wealth creation that I'm really kind of big on now too. So, health is something that obviously I apply in myself and to, anyone that kind of we're working with, and our students. Like, there is no greater gift at the end of the day than health.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
know,
And, one of the things, Dane, that resonates with me when you are talking about all of these things and how you fill the roles, you've been in many shoes, your wife has been in many shoes, and now has stepped into yours. There's this quote, and, we all know it by a jack of all trades is a master of none. And people stop
yeah.
it there. But they don't know that the rest of the quote is a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. And I think a lot of times people neglect the fact that, you can be the best of the best for one area of life, right? But you need to fill into those other shoes as well. You stepped into every shoe, you've mastered each one of them, you know how to do this, that. Once you reach that point of like fulfilling that, it's okay to go take in more and more things, right? Start learning to
a,
be the best
a
in,
lot of,
a
yeah,
new
look,
chapter of
a
your career.
lot of the time we start as generalists, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
it could take years to really kind of specialize. So I
yeah,
think, like, I've definitely, you know taken a lot of, I guess, that experience of having to do so many different things in a business as it's grown and evolved, and get my hands dirty and whatnot, has definitely
yeah,
kind of helped me in my business and entrepreneurial journey.
yeah. And it's no doubt, Dane, that you're an inspiration not only in the fitness industry, but now in the business world. But when it comes to your lifestyle, you mentioned it. You have six amazing kiddos. And what
Yeah.
would be like the top three things that in terms of your family life and your lifestyle that are non-negotiables for you? I talk about that all the time with myself. What, like, your non-negotiables? You can't, like, that is your must for every single
Yeah.
day. What does
So,
a typical day in the life look like for you in that aspect? Your lifestyle, your family
yeah.
role?
Like, there's a few, but, like, to give you some practical examples, like, for me, it's work ends at 4:30 p.m. Right?
Yeah.
It starts at 5:30 a.m. or 5 a.m., but it ends at 4:30 p.m. Why 4:30? Because that's the time of the day where basic kids are coming back from school. We're getting ready for dinner, so it allows us to spend some quality time together as a family. I
Yeah.
think one of the things that, I try and do now is set aside a part of every day where I can actually be present, be
Yeah.
mindful, and connect without the interference of technology.
Yeah, I think
you know.
you're the perfect example of being able to do all of those things. Hey, you have a huge family, and you're
Mm.
blessed with a wonderful family with 6 kiddos. There are sometimes people think that like once the family comes into the picture, you either have to commit to one and you can't commit to the other. But I feel like you've just been the epitome of finding balance, of being able to be present in every role that you play in your life. You're
Well,
Dane in many
yeah,
roles.
here's my concept on balance though, and it's like, don't get me wrong, like I do feel that I have a certain amount of like balancing out my family, my fitness, and when I'm talking about my fitness, I'm talking about my mental and my physical fitness, and
Yeah,
emotional and spiritual, but and then obviously the finance slash career side of things. But I think my approach to all three of those things is to go hard on all of them,
yeah,
right? So a lot of the time it's like, oh, like I can only do this if I've done that. It's like, you know what? Screw that. Like,
yeah,
go all in on all of them. And that's what, like, we as a family, in particular with my wife and I have chosen to do. People look at us and say, like, you guys are crazy. Like, how are you, she's a CEO, you're a CEO of a new startup, you've got 6 kids, you've got like all this stuff outside of
yeah.
that as well. It's like, how are you guys doing that? And it's like, we're fine.
Yeah.
Like we're actually fine from this. Like, don't get me wrong, we have periods where like we get stressed, and you know, like that's normal. But we've learned how to
Yeah.
kind of process things. And I think the biggest thing is, like, you talk about non-negotiables, is whether or not you have a family or not. So you might be single.
Yeah.
Take some time every day where everyone else can just go away, right? So where that's like just going and sitting on the grass by yourself, turning the phone off, or listening to some music and just grounding yourself, or going and meditating, or
Yeah.
going for a walk. Like, find some time every day where you can connect with yourself and build upon that relationship with yourself. That's
Yep.
one thing. And I think sometimes it's like it can be hard when you throw kids into that, because obviously you have to give more of yourself to them. I
Yeah.
try and make sure that I still give time to myself, because I know that I can't be the best husband, the best father, the best family
Yeah.
member if I'm stressed.
Yeah. You
So,
can't pour from an empty
and,
cup.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of parents, I think, are like, they sacrifice everything for the kids, but they don't
Yeah.
realize by doing that that they sacrifice being the best version of themselves,
How do you
right?
avoid, and I think this is more so like, how do you avoid feeling burnt out? We talk about,
Yep.
times of feeling stressed. Things are never always smooth, right? There's going to be trials and tribulations and periods of time where you and your wife together, because you are a team in that, struggle. But how do you avoid that burnout feeling where you feel like you've given 100% everywhere and then you start crumbling? How do you avoid that?
You just got to, I think, sometimes use that innate human quality called intuition, right? We all have it,
Yeah.
right? Close your eyes, feel into your body. Like, we all have it to a certain extent, and
Yeah.
some have been able to refine that craft more than others. So for me, it's
Yeah.
really just kind of, now I've learned to listen for signs and signals, and I also know, like, when I was in my 20s, I was like a bull charging at the matador in life, right? So like, I would literally
Yeah.
charge at any goal, anything, from a place of being unrelenting.
Yeah.
Now I've learned that I can still have that goal, but I don't need to try and attack it as hard as I once thought. I can be a bit more strategic with it. I can spend a
Yeah.
bit more time, like, in terms of like stress and managing time, like, do do 2 or 3 things a day.
Yeah.
And so what I mean by that is, like, if you've got a task list of 10, 20 things, do not try and do them all in one day. I mean, you
Yeah.
can, but I guarantee you're going to do them not as proficiently as you could. The quality is not going to
Yeah.
be as good. The results aren't going to be as good, and you're going to feel stressed out doing it. So, things that I've changed from my 20s into my 30s, and next year I'm got the big 40, so turning 40. But
Woo!
yeah, kind of. But big changes that I've made for me is literally like just realizing that I'm not a machine. I'm a human.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "Oh, I'm a working machine. I'm an animal." No, 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 no. You're not fucking not. You're a human,
No, yeah,
right?
you're gonna
Right?
crash eventually. You really think
You
you're
you
some
you you
robot? Mm-mm.
you're going to crash, and I used to, and that led to
Yeah,
me, like, in my 30s, I had two big burnouts, two massive nervous breakdowns, from
yeah,
literally just being a robot, like, for years. So I've learned to kind of take time out for myself, make sure that we assign time for us as a family, and then also within our relationship, which generally, you know, comes last when you've got kids, is take time together out as a couple
Yeah.
to water all of those trees. You've got to water your own garden, your family's garden,
Yep.
and the garden of your other half, right?
Yeah.
And when you do all those three things, I think you're going to be a much more productive member of society. You're going to be a better leader, better business person, a better friend,
Yep.
a better son, a better colleague.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
and
agree.
so that's really my approach now. And I think as well, what stops a lot of people from getting and maybe executing on what I'm talking about is the whole concept of judgment,
Yeah.
right? Um, Judgment and probably comparison, and comparison is a thief of joy. I'll get to that in a second. But judgment, like I used to do it a lot, right? I used to think like, by the time I'm 30, I need to have done this. By the time I'm 40, I need to have done this. And I was doing that because I was comparing myself, like,
Yeah.
to a lot of people watching right now. You might, for example, aspire to be sitting here doing a podcast with a backdrop like what I've got here right now, right? But
Yes.
before you aspire to that, ask yourself why. Why is that important to you,
True. Very true.
right? So is it important because you think it will make you like it will caress your ego?
Yeah.
Like,
That's a fair
and
question.
a lot of the time, you'll actually find, like for me, a lot of my career goals initially were done from a place of ego. I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
It was done because I was wanting to prove myself. I had a chip on my shoulder,
Yeah.
and it's only kind of in recent years I've realized that there's the why that we think in regards to why we're doing something, and then there's the real why. So if you can get to your real why, that might require some therapy. I've done literally, like I've done thousands of hours of therapy and development
Yeah.
over the years. Like when I was going through massive bouts of depression and anxiety, and even points where I was suicidal, like
Yeah.
I was getting a lot of therapy, right?
Yeah.
But that helped me unpack things. Like as human beings, we've all
Yeah.
got certain amounts of trauma,
Yeah.
whether it's conscious trauma or subconscious trauma, that we're
Yep.
trying to unpack in this life,
Yeah.
right?
I
So
agree.
don't be afraid to go and ask for help. Voice your truth. Be honest to yourself. And if you do that, things will work out.
Yeah. And I think, we touched base on this, your new business. We've thrown hints about it. We've thrown
Hmm.
hints about a new CEO.
Yep.
Let's cue the drum roll for the exciting, exciting announcement. Daine, introduce your new business venture. What is 2021, 2022 going to look like for Daine Mcdonald? What's happening for people who may not be aware of it? I know I have some hints here and there, but let's tell our listeners and viewers what's going on in the Daine world.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think finally, after kind of, especially the last few years, getting a lot of requests, right? People are like, Daine, like you seem a lot happier than you used to be. You're healthy and in shape, and you've got this great business and lifestyle. Like wanting to learn how, like how have I kind of been able to bring together, being happy, being healthy, but then also having a level of financial success. And that's really what the business venture for me is about, right? So it's about helping anyone. So whether you are someone working within an organization that has a life-term goal of wanting to get, to wherever you want to go, and improving your earnings to be able to achieve that, I can help. If you're an entrepreneur or business owner that is wanting to either start up a business or scale an existing business, I can help, because I think what I've learned is business for me has allowed me to fulfill my passion. So initially, my passion was all around health, right? So
Yeah.
getting people that were unhealthy in shape. And then after that, it kind of evolved from training people that were helping others to do things the right way so that they could have a better impact.
Yeah.
Now, for me, it's like, don't get me wrong, I'm still passionate about that stuff,
Yeah.
but in terms of like actually expanding that out and helping people, like I even know from Maria, from our chats, like, and I won't, I guess you can kind of maybe give some of your experience, but
Yeah.
I know some of the stuff the tips that I've given you, just on kind of, the importance in your case of doing meditation to balance out your mental health, your emotions, stuff like that. You've taken that on board. And even just in the short, of the last several months of you doing that, you seem to have
Yeah.
really kind of, elevated your game even more.
Yeah, and I think in all aspects, on my own career of like being a PT, introducing me to like knowing that you brought me on and saw potential, that you were like untapped potential. You're like, all right, we need to crack this egg open,
Yeah.
and introducing me to methods of how to do so. And I feel like just short months. It has only been like a handful of months that I've been working with Clean Health and talking with you and a lot of the other team members, introducing me into methods and ways that I can be the best coach I can be, from providing education to furthering my education to communication. The list goes on, and I can chat with you guys for extensively about that. But I think, career wise, yes, self-improvement, right? You can't, I'm not like faking it. I am living through those things,
Yeah.
practicing mindful meditation, practicing health and wellness in all aspects. I've really stepped into, my brand as a coach. My coaching is mindful bodies. And now I've stepped into that role, and I'm like, heck yes. I'm so happy that I've stuck with that name, and now I'm living it. And you opened that door for me to really, as intimidating as it may have been, as unknown it may have been for me, it's very out of my comfort zone. You've kind of opened that up, and now I feel so confident in doing that and believing true to the education, my methods, speaking. It's proof right here, and it's just a few short months, and I can vouch for
Yeah.
that
Well, I mean, look, I
little
mean,
advice
obviously,
you've given me. Yeah.
I think like, you can give people information, but they've got to apply it. So I think
100%.
obviously you've done that. And, with what I was saying before, though, like business is a tool to obviously, facilitate your passion, right?
Yeah.
But then it's also a vehicle. And as I use the word vehicle, it's a vehicle to attracting money,
Yeah.
right? And when you attract money, you either attract not enough so that you limit your choices in life,
Yeah.
or you attract a lot so that you have a lot of choices in life.
Yep.
And so like I think that's really at its core what I'm teaching,
Yeah.
right? Bringing all three of those things together so that ultimately, anyone that we're working with at Daine Mcdonald is waking up happier, they're waking up healthier, and they're waking up with a bit more cash in the bank, so that if they want to go and take that well-deserved, holiday
Yeah.
that they haven't had in 3 or 4 years, they can now do that. So
Yeah.
we've got an online course that is coming out in December. It's called the Building Your Ultimate Life.
Ooh,
So
I can't wait for that.
it's a completely online course. I'm also currently writing a book called The Happy Healthy Multimillionaire. So really kind of giving people the tools that they need to, I guess, follow in the same shoes that I did and give it a crack. And then I've also got an intensive 12-week intensive coaching program that we've actually launching our first intake in November, ahead of the website actually launching, because I
Awesome.
did a post on it last week on Instagram. And actually, for anyone listening right now, here's another tip, right? So I've only got about 7,000 people on my personal Instagram, very minimal. But I did a post last week just about this program, and it's generated in 1 week about $70,000 worth of revenue.
Oh my goodness, that's wicked.
Right.
Wow.
And so, I suspect that in this first month, we'll probably do about $200,000 to $250,000 in revenue. And that's on an Instagram profile of,
Yep.
7,000 people. So what does that show you? It shows you that the people that are attracted to me are people that resonate with my subject matter expertise. And
Yeah.
then B, it shows you that because of that and because of my skill set, people have trust in what
Yeah.
I'm teaching to want to invest into my product. So a lot of people think, oh, I need tens of thousands of followers, all this type of
Yep.
stuff to grow a successful business. Like, I'm fairly confident that, literally within 1 month, I will have created a seven-figure business with my
Yeah.
small as Instagram account. And it's purely based off the fact that A, I know what I'm talking about, and B,
Yep.
I have a passion for what I'm doing.
Agreed. 100%. And I
So I
think
think
I'm
just remember
excited.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna line up for that one. I think
Okay.
definitely expanding your knowledge, even if it's
Yeah,
everyone can benefit from something like that. So I cannot wait for you to release that, and I'll be there along the journey, taking
I'm
every
sure.
step of the way. I'm really really excited, and like we always do, this is the sad part of the podcast because we're gonna wrap it up. To wrap up season 2 and our episode, Daine, 3 pieces of advice for our audience, just like every guest does, and then we get to say goodbye to Daine on the podcasts. I'm
I
gonna
know.
let
Well,
myself
yeah,
leave this.
as a host, but I'm sure you'll get me back on as a guest sometime in the
Oh,
future.
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
Look, I think, I mean, my first tip is your habits will define your success, right?
Yes.
So if you're, let's just say, for example, your goal is to get into shape, right? Yet you
Yep.
wake up every day and you don't go for a walk, you just train.
Yep.
Or sorry, you don't go for a walk or you don't train, you just sit there and eat, or you live a very sedentary lifestyle. Those habits those habits are not going to equal your goal, right? So, or your
Yeah.
success outcome. So, you can apply that to anything, whether it's you wanting a good relationship or a good business. You need to establish good daily habits. That's the first thing. Um, the second one is that success leaves clues. So, I've always been of the mindset, and you spoke about this earlier with mentors, is based off kind of what you're passionate about, go out there and research people that are doing what you're passionate about, but doing it at a level that you are kind of like, wow, like that's pretty amazing. I would love to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you do that, make sure that the people that are doing it or that you're getting mentored from have been doing it for a few years, right? Because, you can have people that kind of, like get results one year, then don't the other, but you want to
Yeah.
do it with people that have a track record, right? So that's the second thing. So success leaves clues. And then the third thing is, know your craft. Like we talk
Yeah.
about education, and education is one of my highest values in life. Being knowledgeable about whatever genre that you're working in, to me, is of the utmost importance, because the more knowledge you have, the higher demand you're also going to have. The higher
Yeah.
demand you have, the higher the charge out rate. The higher the charge out rate, the more income you can earn spending less time doing what you love doing,
Yeah.
right? So
And what
those would be my
yeah.
3 key tips.
And you guys, that is a wrap. I cannot thank all of our listeners and viewers enough. You've tuned in this season, welcomed
Indeed.
me as a
Yep.
co-host to the show, and I really hope that you've learned something from each and every single episode. I know I have, and it's been such a pleasure hosting the show, and I cannot wait for you guys to tune in next season as well. Daine, thank you so
And
freaking much. I
you're
loved it.
you're welcome. And before I go, obviously, the show's in great hands with you. I think you've been an amazing co-host and now the host, the the top dog, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, like I think you're a testament to kind of a lot of these tips that I've spoken about today, like applying yourself, attracting the right mentors and work ethic and habits and things like that. You're doing that. So, as much as you're saying that I'm proof positive of that, you are too. So keep doing
Oh,
what
I'm
you're doing.
so
Grateful to
grateful
have
to
you
hear that.
on board as part of the team and the organization. Much appreciation. And yeah, we'll talk anyway.
So grateful for this. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you next
All right.
season.